We started on this slide. We spoke about it. If you haven't watched it, then go back to the first video. And now we're going to go and look at the second slide. See if I can get there. Right. Setting the scene. Where does the scene start? Does it start with Adam and Eve? Does it start the moment that God decided to make space for God's self and a vessel to contain the universe or the multiverse? Does it start with Earth being created? Does it start with the solar system? Does it start with trees on Earth, which became fossils, which became coal and metals and other minerals and chemicals and periodic table of elements, an element? Where do we start? Do we start with our birth? Do we start with now? Do we start with some date in the future, like the African Union have got their Agenda 2063? And what's 63 minus 22? 40 years? How much is going to happen in 40 years? I think we should have Agenda 26, not Agenda 63. We should be deciding what we're going to do today, what we're going to do tomorrow, what we're going to do the next day. We should set a target, 1st of January or say 30th of June, 2026, 100% renewable energy in South Africa. Or 30% renewable energy, supported by coal and other products. Some people say we can't get there, but we have to set the scene. We have to say we're in a play, the Shakespeare play or whatever. We set the scene. We say it's Cape Town, it's South Africa, it's Milnerton, it's Earth. Okay, we can agree that it's Earth. We can agree that the scene is Earth. We're on Earth. We can agree from the previous slide that there's a lot of pollution. Might not be this bad, but in some places it probably is this bad. Eastern Germany, before the unification with Western Germany, was a really toxic place to live. If you go to Sasolburg, between Joburg and Natal, Johannesburg and Natal, it's a really sick place. In fact, if you drive on the highway, for 1.5 hours either side of Sasolburg, you can smell Sasolburg. And that's the maize belt of South Africa. Maize, we call it, is corn. Corn and maize are the same. And here we have sweet corn, and there's so much corn syrup. There's corn in everything. There's corn in yogurt. Starch. So, if you're driving at 120 kilometers an hour for an hour and a half, then 120 plus 60 is 180. Means for 360 kilometers diameter, you're breathing toxic fumes in a maize belt with a factory which is the worst polluter on the planet, the worst single polluter, put it that way, converting coal into oil. So pi r squared, pi is 3 approximately, 3.14, multiplied by the radius, which is 1.5 hours at 120, it's 180. 180 times 3 is 540, approximately 540 square kilometers of Earth polluted. And you want to eat food from there, and then you wonder why you're getting sick and why an invader can cause sickness in your body. And you're in a car going to work, or you're in a bus going to work, or you're in a minibus going to work, or you're taking your children to school, and you're in a traffic jam with hundreds of pollutants. And you're not even thinking about it. You just want to take your kids to school. But you've just learned in the last years that your kids can go to school at home. It's called homeschooling. Of course, the children, everybody needs to play sport. Tonight in Cape Town, the Stormers rugby team, the Cape Town rugby team, is playing the Edinburgh rugby team at the Cape Town Stadium, the DHL branded stadium in the Cape Town, in Sea Point, in Willie Point. Maybe, I don't know how many people are allowed to be there, but at maximum capacity, 60,000 people. So maybe 30,000 people at the moment on a cold winter's day, autumn day actually. Technically, winter starts on the 21st of June. So what is the scene? It's a scene of a nightmare scenario. It's a scene of destruction. There's a distraction called global warming. What we do know for sure is that the atmosphere is heating up, and this is causing more moisture to be in the hotter air, and therefore we don't get rain as often as we used to. When it rains, it's storms, like what's been happening in Natal recently, and hurricanes and tornadoes and cyclones and typhoons. Depending on where you are in the world, you call these things different things, but they're all storms that are getting worse. And some people say global warming is called global weirding. Thomas Friedman says it's global weirding. Some places are getting hotter, some places are getting colder, some places are getting more rain, some places are getting less rain. And whether global warming is happening or not, some scientists say it is happening, some scientists say it's not happening. We're going to have a particularly cold winter this year in the southern hemisphere, because maybe even a colder summer in the northern hemisphere, because the Earth is further away from the sun in its elliptical orbit at the moment than usual. Or not usual, but it's because it changes, and therefore sometimes the Earth is slightly closer to the sun, and sometimes the Earth is slightly closer away. So obviously, everyone would say, the Earth is cooling down, because they're myopic and they're only looking at today, or yesterday, or the next 3 months. They're not looking at the trends over the last 100 or 200 years since the Industrial Revolution started, and started taking fossils out the ground in form of coal and uranium and gas and oil and burning it. We are the burning generation, where we burn everything in sight. Pyromaniacs deluxe. Children like playing with fire. Adults like playing with fire too. Our energy system depends on fire. Fire is such an important part. When you in your car and you're doing 2,000 RPM, revolutions per minute, means the spark plugs in your car, if you've got 4 cylinders, 5, and it's 2,000 RPM, it's 500 RPM per cylinder, means each spark plug is sparking 500 times per minute. And every time that's happening, valves are opening and letting in fuel. There's an explosion. Valves are opening and letting out exhaust fumes. And then valves are opening and closing and opening and closing, and your car's running with perfection, or as close to perfection as possible. And you still need to repair your car and do planned maintenance, annual services, change the oil, clean the car. If you've got an old carburetor car, you clean the carb. If you've got a new car with fuel injection, you clean the injectors. This is the scene. The scene is now. The scene is now, 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 now. What are we doing now? What are we spending our money on? Are we buying the latest MacBook Pro? Great if you can. But maybe you're like me. You've got a 10-year-old MacBook Pro. You need a newer one, because you know that this MacBook Pro doesn't run the newest operating system, and by September it's not going to be supported. So you need to buy a newer computer. But maybe you buy a 2014 MacBook Pro. You don't have to buy 2022 MacBook Pro, although if you look at the M1 and the M2 chip, Apple Silicon, then you'll find that that's actually cheaper than Intel chips. So Apple can make the chips they own themselves. They don't have to pay, Intel commission or money, or they don't have to pay an external supplier. They can do it internally. So therefore can be cheaper, and they can bring the cost down. And that's the thing we want. We want the cost to come down every year. We want the quality of life to go up every year. We want our health to go up every year. We don't want to find there's more sicknesses. We've heard that there's 10,000 man-made chemicals in our atmosphere, in our land, in our sea, in our water, and everything is recycled. So you eat something and you go to the toilet, and that goes out, and that becomes part of everything. We drink that later. Hopefully it gets filtered first. But it's in the land, it's in the soil. We live in a closed system. Sun comes in, sun comes in and makes heat and makes wind, and the earth rotates, and all kinds of things happen. The Coriolis force happens, and the earth rotates, and the earth rotates towards the sun. We say the sun comes up. We boil the kettle. We don't actually boil the water in the kettle. We have funny ways of describing things on earth. But generally, we're polluting the place. And maybe we can change our choices. Maybe we can look at costs as a whole rather than costs one at a time. Maybe my electricity cost is higher than yours, but maybe I don't own a car. Maybe you own a car and you have load shedding. Maybe I don't own a car. I have my own energy system, and I don't have load shedding, and I don't have stress, and I don't have crises, and I haven't had a heart attack, and I'm not stressed, and my blood pressure is normal. Maybe on Wednesday morning I go and do Tai Chi in the park instead of going to my client or working, because I believe in health, and even though it means I earn less, I have a different kind of quality of life and a different kind of cost of living and a different increased health, satisfaction, and ability. Let's set the scene. The scene is, where are we now? Where are you right now? You're watching this on your phone, you're watching it on your computer, you're watching it on your iPad, you're watching it on your Android tablet, watching it on your TV. You could be watching it in all kinds of places. And that, where you are right now, is the scene. And what is happening in the scene? Let's find out.